Welcome, everyone, to another enlightening Ascension Wisdom Conversations. It is brought to you by Galactic Ascension Academy at SheilaTillich.com. Yes, this is the time to awaken and live your soul's mastery. I am a galactic grandmother, Sheila Tillich, and I invite you to relax and enjoy this time together as we discover our Ascension Wisdom Mastery. As souls, we have entered a higher dimensional reality as humans on planet Earth. This is the new energy consciousness. It has awakened our multidimensional spiritual DNA abilities, which are given to us by our galactic ancestors. Join me, dear ones, as we live at our soul's full potential, live in our wisdom mastery in this ascension time. Hello, everybody. Hello, this is Sheila Tillich, and this is Ascension Wisdom, and I am so glad to be here today. And today I have a very special guest. Matter of fact, it's one of the gentlemen that I recently met through a friend, and I've been doing actual spots on his podcast. So now I would like him to kind of give us a little bit of background. My guest name is Bill Moran, and he has a wonderful podcast in this town that I live in, Fairport, New York, called Billified. And it's really, really cool. I'm going to have him share a little bit more about that. But really what I love is that I actually was the first person on his show called Bill Enlightenment. And I want him to share a little bit about that, why he decided to branch off in that area besides the Billified. So, okay, Bill, welcome. Welcome to Ascension Wisdom.
Well, thank you. Very nice to be here. Nice to see you.
I know. So Bill is a real deal. He does podcasts all the time. I bring my community together and bring my wisdom through all that I do. But Bill has great wisdom, and I would love to hear from Bill. So, Bill, give us a little bit of background.
I have been doing this podcast, the Billified podcast, for 2 years, and it's dovetailed off my 30-year career in radio. So I was on the radio since I was 19. It's all I ever wanted to do, Sheila. It's all I ever wanted to do. And it's
Yeah.
one of these things where I think a lot of times when you look back and after the thing that you teach, and we look back in life and we go, oh, our mind is really a magnet. That's all I wanted to do since I was a little kid. I used to go to Radio Shack and get those FM wireless microphones that would broadcast, and then I would force my younger brother and sister to sit in the room and listen to me from the basement. And I'd run up and go, "Did you hear me?" And I just wanted to. I don't know why. I love the theater of the mind. I think I had low self-esteem as a kid, so you could be somebody cooler than you really were in real life on the radio and all this. And by the time I was 19 years old, I was working on an FM rock station. I had started on an AM station playing music that I didn't even know, the 40s, 50s, and 60s.
Mhm.
And I did that, and I did some morning stuff. And their sister station was an FM rock station. That's where I really wanted to be. And I eventually got over there, and I think one of the greatest, it's funny because I went pretty far in radio to the point where I was on about 800 stations at one point around the country, or 80 stations, excuse me, around the country. That's a little aggressive. Doing rock. It's so hard because, to talk about where you live is very important. And I always thought the great thing about radio, and I hope it gets back to smaller again, would be that you serve the community that you're in. So to
Exactly.
talk about, the Iowa State Fair that you've never been to be on station in Des Moines, it's disingenuous, I mean, and that's kind of what it's come to in radio at the corporate level. And I think it's just gotten too big. The podcast was started sort of out of necessity. I had no idea what to do. I have done nothing else in my life other than talking to a microphone, sometimes horribly, sometimes funny, sometimes, graphic and dirty and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
Um, but with the podcast, you look for things in life to go, well, am I doing the right thing? Right. And certainly, I think we've all been taught in America that abundance would be the thing. But I will tell you that through the podcast, I have made new friends and new connections that I would have never made. and new opportunities to the point where my 14-year-old son lives with me, that if I were getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning to go do morning radio like I did for pretty much 20 years of my 30-year career, or 25 years, I couldn't do it. I couldn't have him. So all these things have worked out really well. And, people I've met, from Dr. Deep Singh, who does Nadi Water, and you, and Dr. Rob Rice, who's the head of the psychology department at a local university, and all these things that have come together that just would not have happened if I were here. And I feel like, okay, it's all worked out in a great way.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. When my friend told you about me, I didn't even know that you were here in Fairport. I didn't even
Yeah.
know it. I'm not really a radio person, but I do know community needs to be, we need to take care of our community
Mhm.
and get it out there. Absolutely. So, I'd like to know, how did you decide on doing Bill Enlightenment? How did you decide on doing that?
Um, nothing. No, nobody lives in a vacuum, right? I mean, that's the thing. And sometimes we could say maybe it's a message, maybe it's not. I have a former intern of mine from when I was doing morning radio, who got into television and things. And when I was doing this podcast, said, "Hey, I want to come up and have friends of mine do a podcast in your studio. I want to work with this." So she's been listening and talking. And anytime I would talk about things that would just come up naturally on the podcast, along the lines of, I would say things like, "What other people say is none of your business," and this sort of thing,
Yeah.
because we really can't let it affect you, and just things that would just sort of pop out of my mouth. She would say to me, "You got to start another one, and you should call it Bill Lightman, and you go everywhere. You should film yourself going to like a deprivation tank and seeing what that's like, and all these different things." And I thought, oh, I don't know. And then as it kept going, I thought, well, let me try it. And then your friend walked into the studio one day and said, "You have to meet Sheila." And so I thought, okay, well, if it's meant to be, she'll respond and we'll get it. And so I reached out, and you've been on twice. And so I go, this is, yeah. So I really like it too, because it's a conversation with people. And as I said to you before we started, I feel like we've been, I'll say it this way, programmed to live incorrectly.
Absolutely.
And I don't think it was ever malicious. I don't think that people were coming maliciously. I just think we've been programmed to live incorrectly. And I'm seeing that. And I think if you look back in all of our lives, you can see evidence of that, but maybe we were blind to. I don't know if it's blind or just ignorant to. Would that be fair?
Yeah. Yeah.
Ignorance is bliss at times.
Yeah, and I think that's how society was. You go to work, you do this, you follow the rules, control,
Right.
and if you do different, then, you're not normal,
Right.
and you're kind of shunned and pushed away, especially in what I do, the woo-woo stuff. And it's
Yeah.
like, not woo-woo stuff, it's who I am.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, I actually fell into it and stopped denying it, and then it became my passion. It became on why I'm really here.
Yeah.
Just like with you with the radio, you've always done this. But now it's like you're doing it, and now you're going how society is the actual change in society. It's not so much being controlled and not ordinary anymore. It's like we all can be accepted and use it and use it. And it's a community, right?
Here, yes. Here's something that I've been struggling with, and I'll ask you. Maybe you'll
Okay.
have some insight on it. I meet with a group of people that I call my wise council, and some of them are retired psychologists and things. But we really look at all this stuff. We get together maybe once a month or a little bit more. And the last conversation was about free will. Now, I am starting to believe that there is no such thing as assertion.
Ah,
So the idea that someone else does something to me is really not exactly true when I kind of break it down logically. Yet, I'm a liar if I say well, I wouldn't have done that if you didn't do this. You know what I'm saying? Like everything's in reaction to, or we blame, or whatever, and it's kind of our fault. And someone was saying, do we really have free will? Is it? Some people say yes, you have 100%. And he goes, those people are crazy. Is it 50%? This person said to me, I think we have 9% free will. 9%.
Mm,
And
yeah.
so I don't know. I've been struggling with this in my brain for the last 48 hours or so. And I just think I don't know the answer to this one.
Well,
But I don't know. In your studies and things, how do you feel about that?
oh, I think we all have free will
Yeah.
in a way where it's how we live our life, but also remember we talked about the big Earth schoolroom, all the wisdom that we get, all the things that we learn,
Mhm.
and it's just like, I mean, I know because I know about past lives and stuff like that, but I know that I don't have to do certain things like other people did. And the free will is that I realize that I don't want to do that. I don't need to do that. And when we talk about free will, there's many ways of looking at it, but free will as far as try different, do different, try a different way. And we've always been compartmentalized. You got to do it this
Yes.
way, this way, this way. And now things are opening up. Just like what you talked about, when you start in a business like Kodak. Kodak is the main thing here. You're in Kodak for the rest of your life.
Mhm.
Now things are changing and the free will comes in. I don't like what I was doing. I
Mhm.
want to try something different. And so I always remember about going to the heart center. What makes you happy? If it doesn't make you happy, why are you doing it? And the same with free will. You have free will to choose, and things are differently now than
Mhm.
they were before. A lot of people are waking up to that. Of course, society is waking up to a lot of things that has been going on, and that we are awakened, all right, and we are awakened to new things, and we can try different things. But I think that 1% you're talking about of free will is society's determination or society's control over you or the way you think inside.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that there's an awful lot of I would call it like programming in a way. And I don't no one was doing it maliciously. I don't want to look at it that way. I just feel like we don't know better and everything is evolving.
That's our evolution.
Yeah, everything's
And
evolving.
exactly. And, this show is about ascension wisdom. It's a lot of us are become awakened to this, and they're called the enlightened ones, light workers, enlightened ones, awakened ones, old souls, all different names. But the thing is that those choices we can do different. And sometimes that's like the door closing, one door closing, another one opening. The same your situation with you doing the podcast now, the
Right.
last 2 years doing this. And it was part of your evolution. It was
Yeah.
what you're here to do. Absolutely.
It is. And I think we have to look at, we can all look at situations and I always say perspective, right? There are those that believe there is no such thing as time and that everything is happening now, right? There are those people that I can't really wrap my head around this, but
Yeah, I
that
know.
everything we're looking at is happening now. We're just looking at it from a different perspective. So there's a different memory on it. And sometimes people change. I was talking to somebody about how they were always so angry at their dad. And now that they're older and he's no longer here, they're looking at things and going, maybe he wasn't at my games because he really had to work and he was
Yeah,
trying to provide. And I was so upset. And my uncle was my friend because he was the one that was there. That was my guy. And my dad was never at my rugby games or whatever this was. And I go, boy, it's funny because if it all happens at once and everything's happening, it's a different perspective. But boy, that's a relief, isn't it? Yeah, you kind of end the suffering in a way. And I think
absolutely.
that to me seems to be the real work, Sheila. The real work to me in life is not so much controlling your emotions. I used to always say one of the best things that an adult can learn to do is control their emotions, right? And not have the knee-jerk response sometimes to things that lead to it. But also at the same time, I think we came here for a little bit of the drama. We wanted to mix it up. We wanted to
Yeah,
get in there. We
we
wanted
want to have a little fun.
Yeah. And then I think at the same time that the real work is Um, it's so I always had such a problem as a young person when people say, "We got to think positively, got to have the right attitude." Well, how do you do that? That's the thing, and I think the problem is trying to learn to climb the emotional scale, right? Or
Yeah.
climb the emotional scale and raise your vibration. And I loved what you taught me because sometimes I feel like I don't have 15 minutes to meditate, but the 3 minute deal, I did that before I came on to talk to you to say, I hope I say the right things. What do I need to know? This is such a wonderful thing you teach people.
Isn't it? I love it is because our old programming keeps us stuck. The
Hmm.
same with the choices, the choices that we make. We don't want to go outside the line, so we're going to stay and keep that choice. But we are evolving, and by the old programs letting them go, we can do other things and we can expand, and that's where our wisdom comes in.
Right.
And also knowing that we're not alone. We're not alone.
No.
We've always, religion's been so important for a lot of people, all right? But it's like knowing it's like your intuition inside that you're not alone and there's more to life
Hmm.
than what we're living. So you and I were talking about that before we started taping. There's more to life than what you were doing. But you have to go through, I feel that you have to go through that to see, like hindsight is 2020. You
Yeah.
can see, you know. And what I always say is that the older I get, the wiser my parents become.
Yeah.
It, because,
Brilliant. Yes, that's so true. And I always think, why does it take this long for us to sort of figure these things out? Why did,
evolution.
yes, but it took, I wish in a way that I had known some of these things sooner. This has been a long journey for me. And I think one of the biggest transitions in my life was when I was listening to somebody. I used to pop on YouTube when I'd be driving to work or whatever. So it's 3 o'clock in the morning and I'm traveling down the road and I hear somebody go, what is that one thing you're afraid to do? If you do that, you will change your life. And that is really true. Um, I
Exactly.
think there are many teachers here, many teachers on the planet, you being one of them,
That's
that can guide you and teach you. And a lot of times the message is very similar. I mean, if we go back to Jesus and Buddha, and the messages are pretty similar. Trying to teach you how to live, and that the power is all within you. It's all within you. You have it. You are Christ-like. You are God-like. You have it in you. You can control the stream. And that if you really raise your vibration enough, and I would love to be able to do this, it's pretty much three wishes. The old stories of the three wishes. If I could wish, you have as many wishes as you want. You can get it all. You just have to really believe that, more than anything.
absolutely. We talk about the power within, and that's what people forget, that they have the power. It's because it has to do with that programming, how you were brought up. And when you talked about emotions, a lot of people didn't know how to feel
Right.
because they covered it up to survive.
Yes.
Just when you talked, you said that you went to your uncle. Like he was a cool dude and he's the one that
Yeah.
you went because
Right.
your parents are busy working and surviving, trying to provide for you. And I think when we look back we can see that there was many people in our lives that were there for us when our parents couldn't give us what they didn't have.
Right.
Can't give what we don't have. But we don't know that when we're children.
No.
And then, and then when we start growing up and we start, seeing things differently, that's the whole part of a parent, though, is kind of giving you the survival skills to be independent. And then
Mhm.
when we become independent, we realize, I don't like that. I'm not comfortable with that. So they want to do something different, which is good. So you talked about now what you're doing substitute teaching besides.
Yes, I
And
am.
how did that come about? How did that come about? That's awesome.
That came about because with my 14-year-old son living with me and running a business, and he wants to play basketball, and I got to buy the sneakers, and my grocery bill tripled, and all these things. I wanted to do something. So, I have a rotating cast of people that I do Billified with, and we do it. We tape 5 days a week, sometimes six. Uh, most of that's in the evening after they have day jobs and things.
Mhm.
So I thought, well, I got a lot of time here. What do I do? And I thought, yeah, I'll try to substitute teach. And I don't know why. I think because my parents were teachers. I've never done it. I went into my dad's class once or twice. I think I taught how to write PSAs when I was in college or something. I don't know. So this was a whole new thing, and I have thoroughly enjoyed it. Thoroughly
Right.
enjoyed it. And I
Right.
think that it looks to me, and I've said this many times, that teaching itself is a very tough job because you have to meet standards, get them ready for the state test because we're in New York State and they have regions, and then you've got to raise test scores by 10 points and all this stuff.
Mm.
And I don't have that. I get to go in and be Bill Moran. I get to just bring me. And I like me. It's taken me a long time to learn to like me, but I like me. I
I
like
like
hanging with me. And it's so I think the kids have really responded to me and I've learned from them. And I'll push them along to get work done. And I've had teachers say we got more done than ever in any class. It almost seems like I was such a wise guy as a young guy. I probably had undiagnosed, I still do, ADHD. And I mean, if it was spoken into words, I was doing it. I mean, I won't even tell you. There was a game called Bombs Away that we played that involved a toilet and climbing to the top of it. And you can picture it from there. But I mean, so those are my people, Sheila. Those are my people. I get those free spirited, do whatever, looking for the laugh, the creative mind. I truly get that, and I think those are the kids that I connect the most with. And I'll hear the things like if I'm in a math class or something, I'll hear, I'm never going to use this in real life, and I'll always say, I do love knowledge for the sake of knowledge. I think is a wonderful thing, right?
Good.
Philosophy just simply means love of knowledge. And I love that. And I would say it helps you to problem solve and think critically. So even if you don't want to do the math, look at it to problem solve. See if you can find your steps along the way because there'll be something you can bring that to. You're not seeing that when you're 14, 15, 16 years old, but I also think no one's telling you that.
That's true. That's
Sometimes
true.
if you see that, and I go, there's a lot of times I thought I would never use rise versus run, and I love building stuff. I've built stairs and all that stuff. So yeah, it's all for your journey and your enjoyment, if you can look at it that way. It should be enjoyment for the most part.
And when you're talking, I hear your parents coming through as teachers.
Yeah. So my dad was also a philosophy as a doctor in philosophy, but he taught sixth grade English because what are you going to do with a doctor in philosophy? But this was a guy who grew up in a tenement in Brooklyn, basically, and I don't think ever held a power tool in his hand. And he built the house that I grew up in. And at one point, built me the coolest room when I was 8 years old up in the attic, just because we needed that a necessity for space with more kids being born and stuff. And I've always admired that and thought that was the one of the greatest things. And I did go to the same college he did, St. John Fisher University. So I actually had some of the same professors over the years.
That's awesome. That's
Yeah, it was
awesome.
really it was interesting. And at the time, I didn't want to do that because I don't want to be
Yeah.
in my dad's shadow kind of thing. But I thoroughly loved it. Loved it.
Right. Right. And when I said that remark about the older I get, the wiser my parents become, the last thing I wanted to be was like them. But guess
Yeah.
what? I'm just like
Yeah.
them. In a newer version though, you
hmm
know, because, as you said, there's a new vibration. So tell me about the vibration stuff. When did you start thinking about vibration? Start talking those words? Because those aren't words everybody talks about.
No, it's certainly not.
Ah,
My sister is one who's very much like that as well, and probably had been on her own journey and very deep into meditation. My father built her a meditation bench. She too has a doctorate. Hers is in linguistics. So she does this. And she said to me, because I was listening to somebody, and it might have been around the time where I was driving in and I had that epiphany where I heard, You have to do the one thing that will scare you the most. And I was thinking, nothing scares me. And I can remember exactly where I was, where I was like a kind of a knock upside the head, just a little tap. Hey, dope, you got this is what's scaring you. And I went, oh my gosh. And I remember talking to my sister, and she turned me on to Abraham Hicks.
Ah,
And I listened to a lot of Abraham Hicks. And then it was from there that I just was like, well, this is interesting. And I found other people that have similar messages that say they come from a different source than Abraham's, but the message is very similar. And I think that I go, oh, well, this is even what I remember from the Bible.
yeah.
Church was a big deal in my house. Like,
Oh yeah.
even
Mine
if I
too.
worked, if I worked a midnight to six shift on the radio and I was living under their roof and it was Sunday morning, I had to go to church. It didn't
What
matter.
church did you go to? What church?
So here's the strange thing, and this is where religion always kind of baffled me as a kid, right? My parents were Irish Catholic. I believe my dad was in the seminary, although he and I never really spoke about that. That didn't work out. I think he got thrown out. I think I will tell you this only because I think it's somewhat amusing. I think he put a lit cigarette in the Virgin Mary's statue.
Oh my God. Where you get your comedy, your fun to
Yeah,
do.
oh,
Yeah.
he is so funny. So I was raised baptized Catholic, and then when I was 7, I remember a discussion about feeling like they weren't getting enough from the church
Uh,
philosophically and all that. So my parents switched, and it was more of it was called the Evangelical Friends Church, is where we went, and it was more Bible based. And I was in Bible study and Bible Sunday school and all this stuff, and I actually loved it. There were big breakfasts and things. But here's my point with religion. My grandfather, so I'm probably fourth generation Irish. Everybody was from Ireland on both sides, and my mom's dad would not talk to her because she was now Protestant
ah,
and they were Southern Ireland. And he wouldn't talk for a year. He did not talk to his own daughter. Took a year. And I used to love to go to my grandparents' house. So I still did that. Like I would spend a week there in the summer, but I remember my grandmother basically asking me if we, sacrifice lambs at this church and what do you do and do you have communion and what is it? And they were very, very worried and concerned, like it was more occult than
well,
anything.
that's what they were taught. That's what they were
Yes.
taught.
Yes. And so even now, as you're saying, like the wisdom, I always think, and I try to say this to my sons, my son's mom and I are separated, but I will always say to them, when people are telling you things, they're coming from a place of love.
Mhm.
Right? My grandfather's concern was, how could you do this? This is not what our people are. Awful things have happened over religion, right? Just in that little island of Ireland, right? And
Right.
forget the rest of the world where it's happened many, many times and still is. So I always thought, why is that? Why would you be mad? And if God loves everybody, why is that? And then it was, we have to save people. We have to save this, and we have missionaries that go out. And I thought, well, that's wonderful. You're doing great work, but what? Who are you to say they don't get to heaven? And it just never made any sense to me, Sheila, ever at all. And
Me too.
this stuff, the vibration, all of it makes like so much sense to me.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Makes so much. It's if you listen inside, as I share with you, is that I've been able to communicate with angels since I was born. And I wear hearing aids, but I couldn't hear regular people. And the nuns told me I couldn't talk to angels because only the priest could in God, but I could have a guardian angel. So I was shamed. And, a lot of the stuff in the Catholic religion years ago was different, totally different than it is now. And it was different when my parents were growing up too. So I understand the Protestant situation because that's what happened with my grandfather who came from Scotland. All right, and they were all Methodist and a type of Protestant too. And then he married my grandmother, who was strict Catholic, and my grandmother Bridget Doyle, who I'm named after, was strict Catholic, right from Ireland. So that was what was going on then. But I now, Bill, we talked about, spirit and stuff like that. And now I feel them and know them differently than I did back then. And that's what I love about history. I love about learning the past and how it affects me now. And the energy is totally different. But history, this is what you do. This is how you survive. This is what you do to keep things in line. And when you go off the track, you're ostracized. That's
Mhm.
the fear stuff. That's
Yes.
the fear stuff.
Well, it's
That's
control.
part of programming, limiting.
And it's a lot of control. I mean, if you look at even the Catholic Church, there was an awful lot of control over
Exactly.
people.
Exactly.
And
And it's still here now in many
well,
times, but we're
yeah,
awakening.
yeah,
We're
we are. And sometimes, boy, an awful word popped into my head. I think I go, it's almost like you're too stupid to figure it out on your own. Not you are too stupid to figure it out on your own, but you're led to believe you're too stupid to figure it out on your own. So we have a priest who's closer to God than you are, and all this. You don't need an intermediary. And boy, we've learned an awful lot over the years of what was really going on there. So I think that soured a lot of people. But I do think that uh, a belief we're just so much more than these human bodies, right? And I'm
exactly,
starting to believe that we chose to come here. You may not remember exactly why when you're here, but all the things. And sometimes it's fun to almost step outside yourself and see everything that's happening and realize it all means nothing other
exactly.
than the meaning that you give it. It means nothing. So why are you giving it this meaning today? Stop. It's okay, right? I will tell you one of the things that really was, I don't know if it's awakening, but was the total eclipse that we experienced here. Even though
Ah,
it was a cloudy day and it was, everybody was just, forgive my language, but they were bitching up a storm and blah blah blah. And I felt like I was the only one. I was mesmerized by this because here's what I thought: I didn't do anything. This is all happening without me doing anything. I don't get up and go, well, gotta pull the sun up today. Doesn't happen. It just happens on its own. And I go, everything we need to have a wonderful life is already here. We're not
right.
trucking stuff in from other planets. We're not doing any of that stuff. It's all right here. And it was one of these things for me. I went, wow, this is so amazing and so cool that there has to be a higher power that's orchestrating all this stuff so you can have this beautiful experience. And it really is a beautiful experience. And I will say again, and I hope I'm not talking too much, Sheila, but
No,
I
I wanted to talk.
okay. I always think that human beings are almost incapable of something called unconditional love, right?
Mm,
Because you'll love somebody until they do something. Well, how I love you unconditionally. Why did you do that? That sort of thing. But
exactly.
I think the universe loves you so unconditionally that whatever you believe will be.
Exactly.
So if you believe that you can be the greatest whatever, you'll become the greatest whatever. But if you believe that people keep you down and the man's there and I have no money and I'm going to struggle and life sucks and life's a bitch and then you die, it'll
Yeah.
support that as well because it loves you unconditionally. It may not agree with you. Your inner being will never agree with that, but it will support you in that.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think you can change all that.
You absolutely can. It's all about the way you think. And yeah, we talk about the positivity, but it really is. But there's more than just that. There's guidance. There's
Yeah.
something there. And that's where, you know, everybody knows, women have a lot of intuition, so do
Yeah.
men. Years ago, we used to call it ESP, our sixth sense,
Yeah.
but it's also a different way of looking at it. You don't go to crystal ball, people with crystal balls. You don't get, your palms read. You don't go to, psychics, that type of stuff. However, many of them had that way back then, but they kept it in the shadows because it wasn't accepted
Right.
and because of the way society was. And now the last 100 years, I mean, the changes, phenomenal changes, but it's also the energy that's here now, and we talked a little bit about that when I was on your show, the reasons why, the astrology and the vibration in the earth and the magnetic field, how it affects us. But people still wants to play the victim role. They don't want to take responsibility for themselves. And think about that sometimes.
Because it's so easy to, one, we've been conditioned to believe that, right?
And
It's,
programmed.
yeah, programmed, right.
Yeah.
That's the better word, program for sure. And I think that you're programmed to believe that I have no power. I can't change that. I can't change. You can, and I think so. Instead of like telling people to think positively, what I try to say to my sons. I have one son who's kind of going through it right now.
Yeah.
And I said to him, and he's like, this whole thing was dumb. I shouldn't have done it. And I go, but think of all the things you learned. Think of where you are and how you changed physically, your body. He's a big muscular guy. And I said, all these things that you have changed, that you wouldn't have done that had you not gone down this path. And all that is good. So what I always think is we like to distract ourselves. We like to distract ourselves with television. We like to distract ourselves with things. I don't really watch the news anymore because it's too depressing. It's always negative, negative, negative. And it kind of, I think that lowers your vibration. I just
Oh,
think
it
it does.
does. Yeah, it
So
does.
what I think is try to distract yourself with something with a better thought, even if it's let's say you have to do something. I don't know, you got to dust. I don't like to dust, but boy, I used to watch my grandmother dust, and I used to love to be at her house. And you all of a sudden can just change that whole thing, that whole experience. As silly as that sounds, I really believe that's the real work because
Exactly.
there are things we have to do, right? We got to do where we are a member of society functioning with other people in here and all this, but you can enjoy it. If you can do everything with a little bit of joy, boy, it makes everything so much better. And I just think that to me is the real work. And you find yourself where good things just happen. You ever have one of those days where you're like, wow, this, I am starting to believe, Sheila, that nothing happens by accident. I'm starting to believe that absolutely nothing happens by accident. And I think that creation never gets it wrong. And if you are here, and no matter what abilities you have in your body or not, there is nothing, you are here for a reason. There's something, you chose this. Some people say you signed a contract.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure, but I have friends who say that. So,
Well, that's true. And that's kind of like the old learning, and now because we're evolving, that contract can be changed. That contract can be written in invisible ink, is because of the choices that we make. And we have more freedom to make different choices than we did back, 100 years ago. The standard of living and our stations in life, where we were, we couldn't get out of it. It was just surviving. But yeah, we can. We can absolutely change. My podcast before I started doing these videos on YouTube was Serendipity with Sheila. And it was about serendipity and synchronicity.
yeah,
And exactly what you were just talking about is like nothing happens without something, a reason for it. There's no coincidences in anything. And it is our God consciousness. That's what this Christ consciousness is all about. When people start talking about that, they want to be in a higher consciousness field. All right. And a lot of people say, well, what are you talking about? And that's where the positivity comes in, or the joy in your life, doing different, you
mhm,
know, get out of that programming, get out of and the old behaviors. Because if you keep doing what you always did, you're going to get what you always got.
right.
And that's the same with, a person can stay stuck in their fears, but, look what you would miss out on. Look all the things you would miss out on.
Something
If,
happened yesterday to me that is such a silly, simple little story, but I think it's a great example of exactly what you're saying.
yeah.
Because there are those like Abraham Hicks that'll say you can manifest a button as easily as you can manifest a castle. Well,
Yes.
why don't we manifest the castle? Well, we put so much resistance in there. I'm not worthy. That's only for them. That's this. And again, that would be the programming. So I wanted to. Uh, One of the guys on the podcast decided that we should have a little Christmas party thing, and so and then he was talking about he got a gift for this person, that person. I'm like, oh boy. So now, oh boy, because getting a gift card is easy. Having to put thought into this is okay. So one of the guys likes to read and is very religious, but open. Talks about it on the podcast. Will talk to me about different things, and he and I sometimes have disagreements, but nothing that's so harsh you're never talking again. We just have discussions, which I think are wonderful. And there's a book that I saw when I was looking for books. I go, oh, I should get him a book. And on the bottom of the screen, it was like, if you're looking at this book, you may like this one as well, right? This might be one. And I looked at it, I went, oh, that's really interesting. It's called Don't Believe Everything You Think. And that thinking is the beginning and ending of suffering. Right. So I thought, oh, I got to get this book. Well, I couldn't remember the title of it. I had a breakfast with a bunch of friends, the Elder Council that I call them, and I'm going, after this, I'm going to go get the books because we're going to do this at 9, and I had to get all the stuff. And I'm like, oh, man, I can't remember the name of the book. We're at somebody's house. The guy walks into another room and comes back, and he goes, yeah, this is the book that helped me just write my book. I went, oh, my God, that's the
Oh,
book. That's the book. Yeah. And he goes, oh, here, have it. And I said, no, 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 no. I'm going to go buy a couple copies of this. Now, this person, I'm forgetting the gentleman's name. I think the last name is Wynn, might be Joseph Wynn. And I looked at, he self-published the book, and then got such a cult following in the last 2 years that a publisher picked it up. So now the price went up, and it's hardcover. I didn't care. Whatever. I went and bought a couple copies because I'm like, I want to give one of these to one of my sons because I think that there's some lessons in there that sometimes you need to hear it from somebody other than dad.
Bingo.
Listen to dad. Here comes dad with another lecture. I think one of my proudest moments recently was my middle son, who I always lectured, said to my youngest son who's living with me, you get those dad lectures? And he goes, no. Oh, I know. And I thought, yeah, because everybody's different. I can see that. And what one's going to get is not another. And I really think that all of this, talking to you and people like-minded like yourself, has taught me to almost be able to intuitive enough to see what they need without being overbearing. It's made me
Exactly.
better. Made me better.
That's right. And so that's the energy field that I was talking about. Being
Right.
able to read it and know
Yeah.
that this is what they need. It's like the intuition that you have as a parent, but it's bigger now.
Yes.
It's so much bigger. And I like how when you talked about the children or the children, the kids in the high school that you're
Yeah.
part of now, they need somebody like you, and they probably learn more from you than they do their own teacher, just like our parents. Our
Yeah.
parents, we don't want to listen to our parents, and we misbehave for our parents, but they do great with other people. That's the
Yes.
same that they need new stuff coming in, new
Right.
energy coming in, new
Right.
thoughts, new ways of looking at
Right.
things, and experiences.
Yeah.
Uh,
I
it's
just want to add one thing to the book story. My reason to bring up the book story was there was no resistance in trying to remember the name of the book. Do you know what I'm
yeah,
saying? Like the
yeah,
universe kind of gave you the name of the book. Oh, yes, this is the book you should be buying, and this person will like it. And I'm going, oh, I don't even know. I'm gonna go into the store and be like, I don't know. I think it had something about thinking, you know.
right, right,
Yeah,
right.
thanks, dunce. And so uh, when that happened, and I think that all these things, there's no accidents. And if you just put down the resistance, if you can, I think even in religion they say let go and let God. Can we really let go of something, that emotion? But when you do, when it's simple things like that, when it's like the button, it comes. Well, you can do that with bigger stuff. I mean, I haven't exactly yet, but I believe you can.
Oh, no, I think you have. Think about that. It's
Yeah.
like we beat ourselves up. We don't think that we're moving, as much as we want to or think we need to. But that's
Mhm.
also old programming, comparing yourself with somebody else.
Yeah.
And it's like, we don't need to compare ourselves because we're unique the way we are.
Right.
what really would have been cool is before you went into that bookstore saying, okay, do that 3 minute sip thing, just sit in silence and ask for help. Give me the name or direct me exactly where I need to be.
Oh, sure.
They would have gone, they would probably taken right to the shelf, the
Yeah.
metaphysical or whatever.
I brought
Uh,
the book.
class-
I went into it was Barnes and Noble, and I forget that you're not supposed to touch keyboards anymore. So I thought that's where you used to go and search for the book, but
yeah.
I've been buying books online, so I haven't been in a store. So all of a sudden I hear, "Can I help you?" And I went, "Ooh, that tone means don't touch that machine." So I oops. So I turned around and I said, "Yes, I'm looking for this book." And she went immediately to it. She goes, "This has become very popular, blah, blah." And I said, "Are there more copies?" And then she sent me to the portion of the store. So exactly what you're saying probably would have happened with the SIP method, but this other way was, just amazing
Well,
to me. It reminded me too that we can really, when we put down the resistance and stop the I can't afford it, I can't this, or whatever that is, whatever that resistance is for you, when you sort of quiet that down and put it away, great things happen.
exactly, exactly. And that's exactly what's been happening. It's been happening to humanity, and as we evolve, things are getting more open to us, and we're actually listening to what our mind is saying. It's like, no, I can't do that. I can't do that. Well, yeah, you can. Get out of yourself and listen and do it. Because once you do it, is that then you see, how good it was for you instead of being stuck in the
Right.
old relationships, the old, I can't do it, relating, comparing yourself with different people. Exactly, exactly. I thought of something that which you were saying that happened to me. Isn't it cool that when you walk down the street and all of a sudden you think of somebody looks like somebody else that you knew,
Mhm.
and then all of a sudden you go home and you get a phone call from them.
Yeah. Yep.
That is the energy that's here. That's what's in the field. And so many people are waking up just like that person in Barnes and Noble knew what you were looking for and took you right to the right area for you to look. You
Right.
know, it's because people are becoming more aware of this stuff, and it's not so woo-woo anymore. And it's acceptable, and more people are being brought to the right people to open themselves up, just like with me meeting you, my friend Michelle and Cody and all those
Yeah.
friends I
Yeah.
know. And sometimes you get scared. Well, man, should I do this or not? It's like, yeah, just go through your fear. Just do it. Just
Yes.
do it. And then
Yes.
you can see all the benefits from it and the advantages of it. And that's what the ascension is all about. It's about ascending to different higher thinking and doing, and then you share it.
Yes.
You share it.
Yeah.
And that's exactly this awakening that's here. So I love it. I
I
absolutely love it.
I do too, and I think what you're doing is fantastic.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. And that's what my passion is people don't realize how stuck they are until they meet me. And then I said, what do you do? I said, oh, I help people get unstuck. What are you talking about, get unstuck? It's like, well, sometimes, they're angry and they're mad or whatever. And it's like, and it's exactly who they were supposed to meet. Or I'll share my own personal stories and my own family relationships. We all have them. We all
Mhm.
have them. But being a wise wisdom keeper, a galactic wise woman, galactic grandmother, that's where the wisdom comes in. Is that I can pull upon that. And the thing is the heart connection. That's what we talked about. We talked about coming from the heart, feeling that the person is being transparent, they're being real, and it's not something they want to get out of you. It's just like, let's share. Let's
Right.
go to
Right.
what's important in life. What's
Yes.
important, you can't take it with you
No. No.
except your love. You can take your love and
Yeah, I mean, I've come to believe, Sheila, there's only two things: love and fear.
that's what I told you. Love and fear.
Love and
That's it.
fear. And that, fear is going to be what holds you back, and love is what kind of moves us forward and what everything should be about. And when you kind of focus more in that general direction of love, maybe, or like whatever you want to do, whatever it is, whatever, it just is better. It's all better and it all works out. Everything, and that's something I often say is, and I truly believe my father used to say when I was a kid, the sun always shines where you walk, Willie. And right. And I thought as I've gotten older, that thing is, and I think, yeah, everything is always working out for me. And I truly believe that. And everything is. Everything is. I have fears like anybody else. I worry about stuff all the time. But I've learned that that's not getting me anywhere. And it makes me a person I don't like being. And I find myself that things actually work so much better when I just sort of put that away. It doesn't, or quiet that. Don't focus on that. Focus on, I think there are people, and I think you and I talked about this. You could have, 5 things going on in your life, and 4 of them are terrible, and one of them's great. Focus on the one great thing, and everything else gets better. Focus on one of the others, and everything falls apart. You could have one bad thing and 3 good things. Focus on the bad thing, and all 4 now become a problem. And you don't need that. And I like to think we're better than that.
Oh, yeah, we definitely are.
Sure.
And that's what we're here to do. We're here to have that joy and do better things and grow, right?
Yes.
We're all growing. We're all growing. Okay, well, it's about that time. I am so grateful for you, Bill. I'm grateful to know you as a friend and to be part of this journey with you. And you know what? It's going to get better and better.
I believe it.
And that's, there's so much stress and anxiety, what's happening nowadays. And this is exactly what I do, is help people not feel that stress and anxiety, that let's look at the other side of it, and take it with great insults. I can't say it. Take it great grain of salt. How do I say it?
Grain of salt.
Yeah, grain of salt. Okay. That I know what I'm talking about. You know what you're talking about, and you have the power to change that. You have a power to stay stuck or to move forward. And just like we survived through COVID, and a lot of things are coming up, but we're going to survive through that too. And that's part of the evolution. That is our enlightenment.
Yes.
Becoming aware. Yeah. Yes. And the power that we have. So let's stay in that power. All of us, we have power. Right. We have power. So, okay, everybody, thank you for joining us today. And Bill, I am so grateful for you. Thank you for being here.
And I am grateful for you, Sheila, and thank you for including me. I've become a big fan. Truly.
That's great. That's great. I love it because I love it when people start to pick up on it, like that love or fear. I think I told you that in the first broadcast. Love or fear, that was a bigger thing. People say, what are you talking about? There's always a gray area. Well, there's not. And it's about the choices. You can choose this, you can choose that. And so a lot of people are choosing different, and different is good. Right. Different is good. So, okay, everybody, I'm going to sign off again. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye now. Are you ready to ascend to new heights of consciousness? Are you ready to live your Ascension Wisdom mastery? Dive into the Galactic Ascension Academy, where cosmic wisdom meets spiritual evolution. Unlock premium courses with like-minded seekers. Join a community of awakened souls and experience monthly group healing sessions. Elevate your journey with Star Mother's activations, teachings, and meditations. Join the Galactic Ascension Academy today and awaken the Stardust DNA within you. The cosmic journey starts now.